Thank you, Karen. So we had this interesting and in some ways extraordinary report from the Economics Division of the Department of Finance reported in the Irish Times last week about what they perceived as a threat that corporate landlords would be in a position to set rents, high rents, in concentrated urban areas if they become a stronger force within society and within the market. And I'm asking the Minister to comment on that report.
Thank you, Lascan Corla, and thank you, Deputy, for the question. The February 2019 report on institutional investment in the housing market, prepared by the Economics Division of the Department of Finance, examines the role of institutional investors and large-scale landlords in the Irish residential property market. The report finds that the combined purchasing activity of property funds, real estate firms and real estate investment trusts accounted for a net 1% of transacted units in 2017. Ownership of rental properties by large-scale landlords, that is those who own more than 100 rental homes, is also low, accounting for 4.6% of the wider market. The report acknowledges that at a local level, the purchasing and ownership activity of such firms can be more pronounced, particularly in the context of the apartment market. In the main, the report acknowledges the activity of such firms as a positive development and points to emerging evidence of there being a driving force behind a significant increase in the supply of new apartments in Dublin. As Minister, I welcome their much-needed delivery of high quality, high density and well-located rental units. The report highlights that there may be a risk that such firms could scale up over time to develop monopolistic or oligopolistic pricing power. However, the report also notes that there is currently a diverse range of landlords and property types in the rental market. In 2017, approximately 310,000 private rented tenancies were registered with the Residential Tenancies Board, or RTB, and 86% of landlords owned just one or two rental properties. In fact, 70% owned just one property. Furthermore, the Department of Finance report focuses exclusively on apartments for analysis and comparators, whereas the market consists of both apartments and houses. Part 3 of the Residential Tenancies Act of 2004-2016 prescribes the legal procedures for the setting and review of rents. Section 19 prohibits the setting of a rent above the market rent. Essentially, the amount of the rent payable is agreed between the landlord and the tenant, cognizant of local rents for similar dwellings. These provisions are kept under ongoing review by my department. Thank you.
I get the first question.
Minister, you talk about 70% of landlords own one or two properties, and sure, we know all that, but this is talking about a new trend. Corporate landlords in urban areas, city centre areas, becoming a real force and having the power to set rents. Yeah, I mean, the report doesn't pull its punches in terms of what these corporate landlords do. They supply apartments to the premium end of the market, it says, unsuitable for people on average incomes. There is a risk that should buy-to-rent investment continue at current growth rates, market forces would over the long term create socio-economic polarisation in some urban areas, and they go on and talk about the possibility of monopolistic or oligopolistic power in price setting. The question basically is, Minister, having been warned now, what measures do you intend to take? What do you intend to do about this?
Minister.
Thank you, Lascan Corla, and thank the Deputy for the follow-up question. You talk about a trend, it's not a trend. 1% of transactions in 2017 is not a trend. 4.6% of the stock is not a trend. You say 70% of landlords own one or two properties and everyone knows that. Everyone doesn't know that because you're wrong. 86% of landlords own only one or two properties. 70% own only one. So, Deputy, when you attack landlords, as you often do in this House, think about the people that you're attacking. Think about those people, those 86% of our landlords who own only one or two properties, the 70% who own only one. Potentially they're accidental, or in most cases, a lot of cases, accidental landlords who didn't want to or mean to become a landlord, but because of what happened in the financial crash, what happened maybe in their own family circumstances, they do have that other property. And so when you stand up here time and time again and attack landlords, you're attacking these people who have found themselves in the circumstances they don't want to be in. You talk about a trend when it comes to institutional investors. We need more institutional investors coming in because it's actually driving up the supply of more apartments. And we need tens of thousands of more apartments, particularly in our cities, if we're going to actually meet the housing challenge that we have at the moment, but also protect ourselves from other challenges like climate change, as well as the need to promote proper spatial living and compact growth, as we have in Project Dáil Éireann 2040.
Final question.
Thank you.
Mr. Your own Department of Finance has issued a warning, and they've done it in stark terms. They've raised the risk of these investors developing monopolistic or oligopolistic pricing power in rent setting, and go on to talk about pricing people on average incomes and low incomes out of the market. I asked you a simple question. What do you intend to do about it? And you give me a lecture about statistics. What do you intend to do about it? I mean, we're looking at the likes of Kennedy Wilson taking over the Elysian Tower in Cork. We're talking about the likes of the Vulture Fund taking over the Leaside Apartments in Cork, the increasing power of IRS REIT in the Dublin area, and so on. So, do you intend to bring in more aggressive rent control measures? Do you intend to end the tax breaks for the big corporate landlords? And crucially, do you intend to put more money, which is what is needed, into social housing in the inner city urban areas as well as in the suburbs and around the country?
Thank you. Minister, final response.
And thank you, Laskin Corlin, and thank you, Deputy. I didn't give you a lecture about statistics. I pointed out where you were wrong in the statement that you made, and in that lack of knowledge or ignorance, how unfortunately it's leading to statements that you are making against landlords in this country, the vast majority of whom own only one property. So they're not big institutional landlords coming in and taking the approach that you think that they are taking. You're completely mischaracterising our landlord sector in this country, and it's doing a lot of damage for people who actually are renting, or people who might invest in becoming a landlord and make that rental property available to a young couple or a young person or person coming to live and work in this country. Yes, the report talks about 1% of transacted units in 2017 being from institutional landlords, and the stock, I think, being at 4.6%, and it says that is low. 4.6% is low in any market. But of course, I will keep this under review as tens and thousands of more homes and apartments are built. That's what we're trying to encourage at the moment. We're trying to find a better balance in our landlord markets, so that we're not exposed to people leaving the landlord market like we are at the moment. Institutional investors coming in and making a long-term play and providing apartments over a 15, 10, 20, 25-year period is in our interest, because those properties will remain as places to rent. And that's what we need. We're losing landlords in the market at the moment.
Thank you.
It's better to have a balance between institutional landlords and the small landlord that we have at the moment. We don't have that balance yet. We're nowhere near that balance.
Deputy.
And of course, I'll keep this under review until we get more to a balance that we need
Minister.
to see to have a properly functioning and mature rental sector in this country.
Deputy Joan Collins, 30 seconds.